Yo, we're back. I'm here with my boy Jesse. Man, this dude's a good dude. How you feeling today? Good. I'm glad. We go so far back. This is my brother right here. We've been through so much. We've lived together, lived literally in the same room together.
Like almost next to each other.
Yeah, it was pretty darn close, and to the point where anytime that I hear a specific Drake song that was your alarm.
My alarm, yeah.
Yeah.
I wake up to Drake.
Anytime I hear it, I'm like, oh, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
This is how closely knitted we are.
Yeah, it's still the same alarm.
Really?
It's still the same.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
After all this time.
All this time, it doesn't change.
Man, it gives me like trauma just listening to it. But anyways, I'm glad you're here, man. I'm excited to get into this. I feel like you and I so much, even after we've graduated, have grown so much even closer together. And I think that a lot of it is because of the common bond and the common place that God has us in creativity, entrepreneurship, business. Our minds are very similar as far as purpose goes. And so today we're talking about purpose and profession. I know that these two phrases, these two ideas can oftentimes seem kind of blurred and you're unsure of what they really are. But when I say purpose, I'm referring to the God-given calling on each and every one of our lives. Profession, more so referring to our career options. And I just want to talk a little bit about how those two merge together, what they mean, how they cross over. But I want to start off with purpose. And I want to ask you a question. Growing up, did you feel like you had a good understanding of what your purpose was?
Yeah, I feel like I did have a good understanding of it just because basically everybody in my family, like both mom and dad's side, had some kind of business. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was a no-brainer that one day I want to have my business. I don't want to clock in. I want to, enjoy that life. So it was a no-brainer for me that that's the route to go. It wasn't until my parents accepted like Christ into their hearts later on in life that became harder to adjust to, because realistically, when you go into a church, there is a pressure of purpose that your purpose is in the church.
Right.
There's a big pressure that you have to be a worship pastor or a worship leader or some kind of leader in the church. Yeah. And so that was really pressured onto me. Just because of the things that I liked in church, like photography or music or, hanging out, being social. There's a big pressure of like, hey, man, like you're destined to be something here in the church, which are all really good things. But that's where my purpose started to be a little like shaken. Like, well, is my purpose this route or is my purpose like in the church? And so I think at that point I knew my purpose, but it was still just hard to understand and gravitate towards like, where is God trying to lead me into? Right. Just because, like I said, realistically, like there is some kind of feeling in us that you want to desire something in the church. Sure. And then you desire something also outside of it and it conflicts. Yeah. So in between that transition from not going to church to going to church drastically, like that change was where I was trying to figure out, okay, where's my place at in this world, in this life,
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because it kind of seems like in the church we've kind of Christianized this word purpose. And I think that there definitely is a biblical context to it, but we've kind of Christianized it to where it almost feels like if you feel as though your purpose is not inside of the church, then it's no purpose. It's like, it's not a God-ordained purpose or anything else like that. But I think that, like you said, when we can marry the two and we can bring our ministry to the streets and we can bring our ministry outside of the walls of the church, I think that this is whenever our purpose truly is manifested in our lives. And so I think that's so very powerful. I think that also for a lot of Christians out there, to even think about their purpose can sometimes be stressful. It can be kind of a stress to think, oh man, what is my purpose? A lot of Christians and a lot of young adults are in a place where they're like, what is my purpose? Do I need to figure it out? They're feeling pressured for time and pressed for time to figure out what my purpose is. I've got to figure it out. And I think this is exactly where the enemy wants us. He wants us to be afraid to think about our purpose so that we never become the people that God has called us to be. Yeah. And I don't think that that's how anyone should feel. And so if you're feeling like, man, I'm feeling so anxious about this, I think that what would be so wise is just to pray to God for peace about your purpose, because the enemy knows that he can't take your purpose away from you. the only thing that he can do is maybe whisper lies that make you never sow into your purpose.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important that we recognize that our purpose is powerful, and we don't associate anxiety with our purpose and everything. And so over this past year, though, you've gone through quite a bit with your purpose and even launching your business and everything else like that. Talk to me a little bit about that process, and even waiting in the waiting period that you were in for pretty much a whole entire year.
Yeah. I mean, going off of like what you just said, like that transition of like graduating college or like getting involved in a church, that waiting time. I heard the other day, like we as people, we are the only thing in the way of our own blessings and our own miracles. Like Jesse is in the way of Jesse of having his blessing, you know, or having my miracles. And what I mean by that is like, even back then, like when I try to find my purpose strictly in the church, I was going to church and got really devoted into it. And I took my own measures to try to figure out what my purpose is. I ended up hurting people at the time. I ended up just leaving church, like in general. I quit the worship team, and I was like, okay, I'm going to separate myself so I can find what my purpose actually is and see, do I really desire church again, or do I desire what I initially thought I desired? And that was my own strength and measures to like see how can I figure out my purpose. And then fast forward 5 years later, I went to college, you know, we graduated together. And then it was once again like, this is a time to figure out if you're going to be in the way again of your own miracle, of your own blessing. And so, you know, college is great. We got the degree and everything. And not to say that it wasn't a blessing, like getting that degree, but I did look at it in a way where I was like, okay, I got this thing now. Let's go make some real money. Let's go get a real job. Let's go whatever. And once I got there, I was just like, man, this sucks so bad. Like this job is horrible. And it really wasn't even about the money at that point, because I didn't even desire it so much that I was just like, I'm ready to just like quit. I didn't even want to put 2 weeks. Like I'm ready to just not go back in tomorrow. And after that, like I got on a phone call with my mom, and she was like, so proud of your new job, blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I was like, I'm not, like, I'm unhappy. And I quit. And it was this huge waiting pause. What felt like 3 months felt like 5 years. Like it was horrible. And, but it was so beneficial for me to like, okay, I did the first step that I felt God told me to do, which was quit, you know, leave. Like, I'm going to take care of the 2 weeks that you're supposed to put in, like just quit. And I called, respectfully told him I have to go. But I had to wait and say, hey, God, this time I'm not going to take some drastic measures of my own and just take your drastic measures. And I already did the first step. So if I got that step done, what's next? And it was really just hang on tight, really, until I give you the right thing to reveal to you, like, what's next. And it was that initial dream that I had at like 15 or 14, where I wanted to own a business. And I knew that the whole time. And it was just all part of his plan for me to just wait and pause. And as soon as he opened that first door, I immediately knew, like, this is God talking, you know, this is God showing me, you know? And so, the waiting game is huge. It's not a waste of time. It may seem like a waste of money because you're not making money, or it may seem like you're just not being able to go out or be social, or like you're planning, and it's frustrating. But God made us human. And I think that he had a purpose for making us human. You know, he knows we're capable of feeling sad, depressed, anxious, frustrated. And that's where we have to take his drastic measures in order to feel his peace and his purpose in our life, and not our own, you know?
I think that just viewing your walk and viewing the, 3 months, 5 months, however long it was that you were in that waiting period, it was so encouraging to my spirit, because a year before we graduated, you were promised a job. And it was like, I remember us all thinking, wow, Jesse's already got his job, man, this is all working out. The money seemed really good. When you came back and you told me how much you were making, I was like, dude, that's going to be lit. You're going to make all this money. It's going to be awesome. Like, I was just thinking all these different things. And so when you stepped into it, you being able to differentiate between a good idea and a God idea, being able to differentiate between what the world may have even seen as a blessing and then an actual God blessing for you to step away so that you could step into the real purpose that God had it for you was just so powerful for me, because I think that most people wouldn't make that decision.
Yeah.
I think that's very tough for them. And
it's good to understand, like, I think sometimes when people say, like, God, not my dreams, but yours, it's a scary thing to say, because you may think it's the complete opposite of what we want. But truly, it's just a better version of what we want, you know? And it's just like, well, like, instead of, like, for instance, like, instead of pursuing this business or whatever, and God's like, just wait, hold on. And you may think like, man, God's about to call me to, I don't know, work at some daycare or work at some 9 to 5. And it's just like, we got to wait. Because if we get desperate and you start seeking your own jobs and you start going on the internet and clicking and going at it, and you're just like, man, I can't find crap.
Yeah.
It's just wait on God, that waiting game. Like you said, like, there's good ideas. We're capable of having good ideas, creative ideas. But God is capable of doing better ideas, like God ideas. Like, those ideas are way better than ours. So why wouldn't we want to elevate in our creativeness and our purpose, you know? So it's always a better version, a way better version than what we thought it was. Even when it's financially like, man, this job is whatever amount of money. And God's like, well, I don't want you there. And you got to have that waiting game. And he's like, I have something better, you know? Good. So that waiting game is important. It's an important time.
That. I love that. So good. So good. And you kind of hit on it a little bit, but like, in the waiting, I think that it's important that the practical thing that we can do is do the last thing that God told us to do. And so if he said work at the daycare, work at the daycare. Daycare. Be at the daycare. Be the best leader at the daycare. Be the best, teacher at the daycare. Whatever you got to do, be the best that you can be. If he said, hey, continue to serve at a church, or continue to serve in a nonprofit, or serve just people or whatever, serve to the best ability. Just do the last thing that God has told you to do. And oftentimes I think that with God's instructions on our lives, we think that they expire. So we're like, oh man, I've been doing this for 3 years. I guess what God told me has expired. But oftentimes he's saying, no, just stay there. Continue. And then watch me grow you in the next season that you're going to be going into. And so I think that is a practical way that I think that we as Christians can continue to wait.